What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, mailbag time at John Middlekauff. Fire in those DMs on my Instagram and get your questions answered on the show. I actually just saw that the Raiders, who gave Christian Wilkins, I think, like $85 million guaranteed last year, gave him $110 million total. I mean, he was the biggest free agent. I would have even imagined he was bigger than any free agent this offseason. He got a ton of money. He was a really good player and had a bad injury. And I was told, not by Spytek, who came on the show, probably 3+ months ago, that it was bad. The injury was bad. The situation was bad. Now, I didn't really know much was going on. I just assumed, Pete was asked about it a couple days ago and said basically like he's not even close to playing. And then they cut him and they filed a grievance, or he filed a grievance, and they're not going to pay him $35+ million that he's guaranteed. It's going to get pretty ugly. My overall take is this. This would have been a tough situation for John Spytek and enter a young first-time head coach. I think a lot of people, and listen, I've been one of those people that have been critical of the Raiders for a while. Like they've just been involved in a lot of crazy shit since I got out of the league and was doing radio, and even since I've been podcasting. But this is why you hire credibility. Like, what are you going to do? Pete doesn't know what he's doing? Pete hasn't seen it all? Like, this isn't just some random Joe Schmo, right? So this is where credibility, and listen, I don't have the details to this, and this situation is going to be an ongoing litigation league-wide, right? Guy fighting for his money, the Raiders not going to pay him. But it's like, this is where credibility, experience, like, Pete, I got it. I'll handle this situation. I've been here. I've had historic players flip me off as they've left the field. So it's like, this is why the Raiders needed some credibility, and Pete brings it. I don't know who's right or wrong in this situation. I just know that Christian Wilkins is now no longer a Raider, and obviously had a bad injury. I saw someone just posted a video of him dancing in the locker room or the weight room a couple of days ago. Clearly, the Raiders can't stand this guy. Like, there's nothing like the best part about life when it comes to public situations. You can say whatever, especially all these coaches, right? Can give cliche answers. When you judge people by their actions, like you just cut a guy on July 24th after you've been together now with the vets for a couple days, like, you clearly hate this guy. Which, listen, we all hate certain people. And you're not my guy. We didn't sign you. You're not my player. But this shit ain't flying here. And I would say no franchise needs more of like, this shit's over. Like, this is not, we're drawing a line in the sand. No organization needs that more than the Dolphins. But the Raiders, for 20+ years, the Giants are going to need that. Right? There are certain teams, the Jags, and all these people, all these teams, newer, younger coaches, first-time GMs, like Pete Carroll. As Pete had a great line the other day. I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to pick the Raiders to be really good this year, or to be like kind of like a trendy hipster 10-win team. I just don't know if they have the talent to do that. They're clearly going to be a lot better. And Pete's like, I've been winning 10+ games for 20 years. Like, what do I plan on doing? I plan on winning. And sometimes, if a young coach, like if Liam Cohen or Ben Johnson just makes a statement that's a little out of pocket, you're like, what? No, Pete, you haven't just been winning 10 games. You won like 12, 13, 14 games a lot of the time. You're underselling yourself, Pete. I do think this is going to be a difficult, definitely first year for Pete, relative to his typical standards, but I love it when someone just comes into a place and starts rattling fucking cages. Another question. I'm listening Wednesday to the pod right now, and you mentioned Trevor Lawrence not living up to his draft prospect hype, and it got me thinking. Since Elway, there have been 4 major draft quarterback prospects that are mentioned in the same group. Manning, Luck, Lawrence, and Caleb Williams. I think that's 4. Oh, and you're including Elway as well. If you had to rank them all, I would say, listen, I was born in '84, the year Elway was drafted, so it's hard for me to put him in context, but I think it's fair to say John Elway is the best prospect at quarterback in the history of the NFL. Now, maybe there have been better prospects at other positions, but if all things are equal, you would take the quarterback over any position. So I think you could argue that John Elway at 22-ish years old is the greatest prospect in the history of the league. I was in junior high when Peyton Manning was coming out, but like I've watched enough Peyton Manning. I've seen him live in the pros winning MVPs. Like he was an incredible player. It's impossible to comp Luck and Manning. Obviously, Luck quit 7 years in. I think coming out of college, I think you could make the argument that Luck was better. His athleticism was so much better than Peyton's. Now, Peyton's athleticism in college actually wasn't terrible. I think we view him as like a bad athlete in the pros, which I think he kind of became that as he got older. But if you watch some Tennessee highlights, he could move. But I think that factor, neither had a great like howitzer like Elway. So I would go 1, clearly Elway. I would go like 2A and 2B, Luck, Manning. These are as prospects. I would have a huge gap and go Trevor Lawrence then Caleb Williams coming out of college. Longtime Fresno fan, moved to the Pac-12. Do you see any impact? Also, the biggest obstacle for the Raiders this season. Is it extremely competitive division, the defense, or is it Geno Smith? And do you think they will be able to win a division like the AFC or NFC South? I think their biggest obstacle, now they have a real coach. They got Crosby still. They got Colton Miller. They got Geno Smith. They draft Ashton Genty. They just drafted a bunch of players also with Ashton Genty. I think they had, they definitely had multiple 3s and a 2. The wide receiver, from Texas Tech. Beck, I think he was originally at LSU. Then Ogeron got fired and he transferred to Tech. I think Tech. Could be A&M. I'm pretty sure it's Tech. But I think everyone just needs to pump the brakes a little bit on the expectations. Like, could they win the AFC South? The Texans are way better than the Raiders. I think if they both played the same schedule, I think the Texans are multiple games better, as they should be. Casario's been building it up forever, right? It's like, no shit. So I'd give the Raiders, I'm giving them a little bit of a pass this year. I think there was a chance they go 6 or 7 wins, but they look way better. I mean, last year was an embarrassment. I mean, it really was. They were unwatchable. Them and the Pats were just not a watchable franchise. So I think this year you should just be excited, and then another draft class, and I think big picture, it's like, Pete's 73 years old, 74 years old. So how many years has he got this going? 3 or 4? My thing is, if by 3 or 4 it's actually going kind of well, maybe they draft, their version of, and again, I'm not saying they're going to find Russell Wilson, but like what changed Pete's life with Seattle was getting Russell Wilson. He's going to be able to find other players, right, at other positions. They're going to, him and Spytek, but finding the quarterback is hard, right? So if they do find that guy, is Pete just going to want to quit at like 77 years old? It's crazy. Pete Carroll's like 2 years older than Hulk Hogan, RIP, who just died. Absolute, legendary cultural figure in my youth. Ozzy, I saw someone tweet out today that Ozzy outlived Hulk Hogan by like 5 years. Going to the gym is overrated. I would imagine they approach things a little bit different. Obviously, they both had substances coming into their body for different, reasons. But, Pete's youth, you see him talk, he still looks and sounds like he did 10 years ago. That to me is where it gets complicated, but that's a big picture thought. Okay, you know what Scotty Scheffler taught us? You drive for show, but you putt for dough. And the easiest way for you to make some dough, betting on this week's tournament on DraftKings. From the opening round through Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. Chris Gotterup, who just finished 3rd at the Open and won the week before at the Scottish Open, betting favorite this week. Do think he's going to run out of juice. Do you know one name I like a lot? Tony Finau. Showed some serious life across the pond. You can get him right now to win the tournament, plus 350. or plus 3,500, excuse me. But plus 650 to top 5, plus 330 to top 10. Tony Finau has won this tournament before. So, like Tony Finau a lot. Wyndham Clark, Mav McNeely, a couple other guys to keep an eye on, trending, trying to battle for a spot on the Ryder Cup team. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers, bet 5 to get 150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN, J-O-H-N. I got an H in my name, J-O-H-N. For new customers to get 150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Why is Jalen Hurts one of the most disrespected quarterbacks in the NFL? He's the only quarterback to win the Super Bowl and in that following offseason get completely discredited for winning. Do you think it's because most people doubted him coming out of college and people refuse to admit they're wrong? You know what's funny is 2 years ago when it looked like the 49ers were going to beat the Chiefs, I remember texting with a buddy. He's like, even if they win this game, the conversation on Brock Purdy isn't going to turn into, well, now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's going to be, well, it was just his team. It was just his coach. It was just Trent Williams. It was just McCaffrey. It was just Debo. It was just Fred Warner. And that's the same thing with Jalen. And this is, I went on this rant like a week ago. I just, no, it's not Jalen, but everyone gets so caught up, which maybe I'm not. I could be better at my job and just do more like quarterback lists once a week. It does nothing for me. I hate that stuff. And luckily in the podcast world, you don't necessarily have to do that. But is Jalen a top 5 quarterback? He's not. Does he benefit from playing with a great team? Of course he does. So did Joe Montana. So did Tom Brady when he was young. So did Brett Favre with Mike Holmgren and Reggie White. I mean, it's like any good quarterback. John Elway won 2 Super Bowls. When he had Mike Shanahan, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, and a sweet defense. Like, usually, this is not the NBA, where it's like, well, I was like the best quarterback in the league. My team sucked, but we still won 14 games and went to the Super Bowl. That's not how it works. So it's just, he's a polarizing player. Because if you're winning a lot, and you're clearly not one of the elite guys in the NFL, and he's not, that you're just going to be just a major individual in the conversation. Because you can't have the conversation, right? What else are you going to say about Mahomes? Like, what's the point about Mahomes? And really, what's the conversation now with Lamar and Josh? Well, can they win a Super Bowl? That's really the only conversation. There's not like, are they good enough? Can they throw enough touchdowns? Can they make enough plays? Can you win enough games? Like, they proved it all. So it's just not going to end. It's just not going to stop. A couple of my closest buddies are some fellow bald-headed brothers. Love to see the community flourishing. I totally agree. We are having a great run. I do think the internet age has been good to us. My question relates to the Dolphins in the city of Miami itself. Do you ever see Miami becoming a powerhouse like the Chiefs or the Brady Bill Patriots? Or are there just too many distractions for all these early 20-year-olds? I'm starting to wonder if a coach like Tomlin or Mike Vrabel would even make a difference. I don't think it's possible to overcome it nowadays. I really don't. And, you know, Pat Riley, basketball is easier in the sense that you only have to corral, I mean, your rotation in the playoffs, 7 guys, right? Your team's 12. And I've seen some clips from like Udonis Haslam and Mike Miller's podcast where like UD would tell guys like, hey guys, you're going late to these clubs. Like Pat will call you into his office the next morning. He'll know you're there. They know everything that's going on everywhere. Oh, I think it was Mario Chalmers was like Pat Riley called him into his office and he was like, why were you at the club last night, like 4:30 in the morning? And Mario's like, how did this guy know this? And it's just easier to do with basketball. And also he's Pat Riley. You know, Jalen Ramsey wouldn't even listen to Mike McDaniel. And honestly, I don't. I'm not defending Jalen because I do think there's just a level of someone's paying you $20+ million, show up on time. And listen, I'm scarred from my youth. My dad is just big. I mean, we didn't have that many rules as a kid, right? Stand up straight, look people in the eye, shake hands, be on time. I would say my house was closer to like Tom Coughlin rules, like kind of 5 minutes early, especially to any serious situation, like a team meeting. You should probably be there on time. So I just think that the respect matters. Like if Andy Reid was the coach of the Dolphins or Mike Tomlin was, or the Harbaugh brother was a coach of the Dolphins, it would be way more buttoned up for sure. But I do think it's a pretty difficult obstacle to overcome. Me and Colin were talking about this. Like LA, like things in California don't stay open all night. New York City, yeah, it stays open all night, but no one lives in the city. San Francisco, everyone lives in San Jose. San Jose fucking blows. Like this Arizona, they practice out in the middle of nowhere. So it's like some of these situations, I've always thought that with like Arizona State, it was hard to overcome kind of the party aspect here. And the standard for the football program was not like some elite program, but it was always really hard. Then you kind of come, and if you're a college football player, there's just a lot of talent in this area. Some of the most talented areas in the country is probably right here. Some would argue this is number one. And Miami has an aspect of that with this like international flavor of like no rules, kind of the wild, wild west. Obviously, if you have money like these guys do. So I do buy into that. I really do. The Lions lost both their coordinators. They have a very hard looking schedule. Ragnow retired. Now they lose Levi, will miss the season with an ACL. He's a pass rusher. Is it on the board that they missed the playoffs? I think that would be pretty stunning. I do think that would be pretty stunning. But for 35 plus years, on at minimum, four teams have turned over. And sometimes like five or six. So now we got 7 teams a conference. So you got 14 teams. So of those 14 teams, we know that 4 will be new minimum this year. And if you just start, it's like well, it's Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Commanders. Like there's going to be someone. I mean, last year was the Niners. No one saw that coming, and it happened. The Bengals too. So you never know. I would never say never. Like any team in the league can miss the playoffs this year. If you tell me, obviously for one of the main teams, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, you would need a major quarterback injury, right? Their teams are just too good. Their operations are just too good. The Bengals proved last year Joe Burrow can throw 45 touchdowns. They can miss the playoffs. Herbert would probably have to get hurt as well, just because of the way the Chargers are going to play. But yeah, something's going to happen. I mean, as a college football coach myself, you're one of the few people that actually know what they're talking about, so I appreciate it. I like this guy. This is Riley. I know it will never happen, but fun to think about. If Saban wanted to just coach ball and not deal with the NIL and all that, he should coach D3 football. No athletic director is going to give me any shit, coach a lot of technique, and turn a D3 into a powerhouse. Your thoughts? Like in theory, I get what you're saying. There's like a purity to just coaching football. I do think when you've been at the level in which even use Bill as an example, because a lot of people thought like, let's use last year as an example when Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, who are like tied at the hip for multiple decades, right? 3.5 decades, because they've known each other for 40 years. They coach together. They're boys. It was like, you know what? If Bill couldn't get an NFL job, he could just coach high school. And it made sense. Like, he just loves ball. Well, he's also been making 15, $20 million for a decade. Been playing in games where 20, 30 million people watch. Coached the greatest, most famous player in the history of the sport. Been to 9 Super Bowls. Saban coached how many first rounders over the last 15 years? Played in the highest rated games in front of 70, 80, 90,000 plus people for 15 plus years, and who is very wealthy. So neither of these guys need the money. But like, ask Bill. Do you think his juices are going to get flowing Monday Night Football against TCU? Would it be the same if he was coaching Davis High School or D3? And I have no shade at any different division. I just think for those guys, it's really, really difficult. Like let's face it, it's hard for Tom Brady to date someone who's not famous and probably famous slash has money. Because how can what are they talking about? Like, how could he just date some 32-year-old good-looking chick that just sells insurance? Like, beside, like, if she was a 10, okay, great, we can bang, it'd be fun. But like, this ain't gonna be serious. You kind of got to be on my level. So for Nick, I think you kind of need the juice of, if Nick were to come back, it's my thing. If he were going to come back to college, you could count on one hand the programs. One, he'd never go west, and he'd never go, like, Michigan, and that conference isn't really fit. So it's only the South. So it's basically maybe a couple of those ACC schools, maybe, even though it'd be like Texas, Florida. He's not going back to Bama because they can't buy out DeBoer. Brian Kelly, LSU, would he go back? It's like three or four schools. So I just think that, I think once you've seen the bright lights, like, it has to be hard if you are a musician in a band. And once you start, like, for example, Morgan Wallen just came and he sold out. Last year he played at the Diamondbacks, Chase Field, just like he played a lot of, I don't want to say smaller venues, but like baseball stadiums, NBA arenas. This year he's selling out football stadiums. Once you start selling out football stadiums, it's one thing to do like a one off in a venue for 4,000 people, but it would not feel the same just doing a tour for 4,000 people. One, just the reactions, the money, the whole thing. So to me, these guys have been at this level. Like, Pete Carroll's a good example too. Like, why did Pete want back into the NFL? Because that's how they get their juices flowing. I'm a Charger fan. Is Rivers a Hall of Famer? He was behind maybe the worst offensive line in 4 years. 4 years. He sort of reminds me of Burrow's trajectory, though his is still developing. But in a dysfunctional situation, put up insane numbers and drug his team to wins. I think the best compliment you could give Phillip Rivers, like in the prime of his career, if you loved football and he was, Chargers were your squad, you felt really good just going into war with Phillip Rivers as your quarterback. I saw the clip. It was really, I mean, the clip he did where he's being interviewed at his house, talking about retiring, which I think we all thought he retired like 4 or 5 years ago. And he gets emotional, and it's just kind of a moving thing. And then his like four offensive linemen, Nick Hardwick, McNeil, a couple other guys came in. It was cool. I mean, it was a really, but I saw the clip of his last game ever for the Chargers. He gave this post game press conference where he was in tears and basically just talked about, like, I never did this for the stats. I never cared what my numbers were. I just wanted to win the game. It's like, this guy, I always thought Phillip Rivers was a badass. Hall of Famer. I think he's right on the line. Now, for me, as someone that likes Phillip Rivers a lot, I think Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback, had a better career in terms of like the aggregate year in, year out than Eli Manning. But like, Eli Manning's going to get in one day because he has two playoff runs where he beat Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers' best run, he got to the AFC Championship game. Not all his fault, but like, I'd argue both guys. I just think the Hall of Fame should be set for Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Walter Payton's, Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Deion Sanders, like Jerry Rice, the best of the best. But that's not the case. So if Phillip Rivers gets in, like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. My first reaction is no. Though I respect the shit out of him and I liked him a lot. And when I was doing Raider stuff, even with the Eagles, I saw him play a bunch live. I just thought the guy was a war daddy. Very old school guy. Question for the bag. Everyone knows the worst team in the NFL would destroy the best team in college. However, the only thing I'd push back on that one, depending on the time of the year. If we're talking like December and it's like a winless team and they're on some shitty quarterback with a bunch of injuries to their roster, because even the worst team in the NFL, in theory, if healthy, probably has a couple Pro Bowl level guys that could dominate against college. But if you have a bunch of injuries and a bunch of practice squad guys playing, we've seen some pretty bad NFL teams toward the end of the year. And if you're getting like a USC, a Georgia, and Alabama, or LSU, that has like 20 of their 22 starters are NFL guys. 10 of them are like future Pro Bowlers. I'd like to see it. However, could the best college team beat the worst Canadian football team? I definitely think a team like the 19 LSU team could beat a UFL Canadian. LSU teams like that would kill the UFL. I think the UFL would get smoked. I don't watch Canadian football. When I worked in the NFL, I scouted it a little bit. It's a completely different game, right? There are rules, like you get running starts. So it's not like apples to apples the way they play. It's not like cricket versus baseball, but there is the down and distance, right? You only get two downs to get, and third down, you got to punt or go for it. I just think I haven't watched Canadian League in a long time, but they're not playing American football. So I don't, it'd be an advantage and a disadvantage. If you were just both playing the same game, I'd have to text some people in the NFL that like kind of stay up on this more that could like break down like, oh yeah, they got like 10 NFL guys on their roster. Because my first reaction wants to be like, if they are playing the same sport, would I take like last year's Ohio State? Would Canadian be able to get to them? I mean, typically the best player on a Canadian league team, or let's just say the best NFL prospect in the Canadian league, let's say he's a pass rusher. Every once in a while, the Dolphins used to have this pass rusher like 15 years ago that was really good that came from CFL. But for the most part, it's like a rotational guy, maybe. And if you're playing a team like LSU 2019, like they have a DB that's going to cover Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So my first reaction is no. I would take the college team. Could be wrong. Don't feel great about that, though. Question for the bag. Why do you think the analysis of teams varies so much between the regular season and the offseason? For example, I'm a Packer fan, and last year I'm watching every game thinking they're starting slow and need to be better on second and medium. But in the offseason, we talk about teams getting better by plugging holes in the roster. When the offense is out of rhythm, we're talking about how Matt LaFleur isn't using Jacobs enough and how we need more tight end or whatever depth. Yet in the offseason, the media will be saying how we better upgrade our DN cornerback. I think the conversation changed dramatically. One, a huge conversation during the season is the coaching, right? How are they using a player? How the offense is doing, how shitty they are in the red zone, how they got no pass rush. In the offseason, you don't have the weekly game to go to judge and create. I hate the word narrative because if you have no sacks through a month, like you're bad, your D line sucks, right? But in the offseason, sometimes you go, well, overall defense isn't bad, and you start talking about the roster in kind of like in a macro perspective. In season, it's very micro. You're dissecting individual position groups, you're dissecting individual players, you're dissecting individual coaching. In the offseason, it's more just about the 60 guys under contract, right? Who's a free agent, who we can add, how this guy can help. So it's kind of bigger picture stuff. The conversation dramatically changes from basically, let's say, in 2 weeks, once we really start playing some preseason games, looking at the roster, still kind of stays, I would say, with an off-season kind of tone. But once you start playing the games, then it shifts to coaching staff, OCDC, and individual players slash units. Like God, our linebackers suck. They can't make any. They can't make any tackles. Was that a coaching thing? Is that a scheme thing? Is that a personnel thing? So then it kind of you can kind of talk about it from every angle. But as we sit here right now, where every team's just on the field in shorts and a t-shirt, it's kind of like, well, how's the roster? Are we good enough? Like if I'm a Packer fan, is our defensive line good enough? Is our receiver group going to be good enough? Are these guys healthy? What's the status of some of these guys? Can Jacob stay healthy? You're just kind of talking big picture stuff. But like a month in week 4, and Jordan Love's only thrown 2 touchdowns, you're like, what is going on with our passing offense? Why are we throwing so many deep go routes that aren't working? Hey Matt, can we run some quick game? Can we throw the ball to the running back? Like you can't. You're not having that conversation right now. And the thing with like basketball, right? I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast, and he was talking about the Clippers and like they basically put together a 2016 All Star team. But like you got an idea, like James Harden's going to do this, and if Kawhi plays going to do this, and Chris Paul can bring you this, it's like you kind of know their team. Now in the playoffs, like well, are they going to be healthy? What can they run? How can they adapt? Right in football, even year to year, it's like, well, what if I told you Jordan Love has the best deep ball accuracy in the league this year? Or what if he's the worst? Right? Then that becomes, we just don't know. And it kind of changes year to year, beside a small handful of players that you know exactly what you're going to get. I got to tell you about LIV Golf UK. They are playing at the JCB Golf and Country Club. I saw some pictures of it on the internet. It looks pretty cool. Obviously, Liv's coming off, DeChambeau shot 78 in the first round of the Open, and then he shot 16 under to finish in the top five. Hatton was really good. He was in the mix really most of the tournament. Mickelson made the cut. So always exciting to see these guys across the pond. You got John Rahm, Legion 13, Bryson and the Crushers. So you can check it out this weekend at the JCB Golf and Country Club. Follow every shot on Fox Sports. Bryson, Phil, Kepka, DJ. DJ made the cut at the Open as well. Look, actually had some pretty good moments on Friday. I watched him play a little bit. We'll see the individual stakes at hand. Obviously, Waco Neiman has had a hell of a season, but John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau are right on his tail. So again, check it out on Fox, JCB Golf and Country Club, LIV Golf. I've been listening for the last 18 months since I moved to the States from Australia for work. It's a big move, bro. My question is about the Glazers, who own the Bucks. How are they viewed around the league? Do they spend money on facilities, free agents, coaches, and are happy to give out big contracts? I ask because I'm a massive English Premier fan, and I love Manchester United, which the Glazers own. Their dad bought the club 20 years ago through a leverage takeover, and since then, they haven't spent a penny on their own money on the club. They take dividends out of the club and have loaded it with £1 billion of debt and refuse to clean any of it. They are despised by most of the United fan base. So just wanted to know how they are viewed around the NFL. I don't have enough knowledge on this. I would assume they don't live in Europe and they live in America slash South Florida. So again, I could be wrong on this. I do wonder if it would be easy to own a bunch of teams. Like I think the Cronkies do too. If you own them in America, right? If I own the San Francisco Giants or I own the LA Lakers or the Dallas Cowboys, even if I don't live in Dallas, I can't really hide. If I'm doing aka not spending money, being cheap, I'm gonna get fucking crushed, right? And I can't avoid it. Well, if I live in the States and this is going on, like for example, I follow sports really closely, right? Social media, like I'm pretty dialed in. Even I don't watch that much baseball. Even I definitely don't watch nearly as much basketball as I used to, but I got a pretty good idea what's going on. And when big stuff happens, especially with the big brands, I'm not going to miss the story. Yet most of this stuff internationally, I never hear anything about it unless someone forwards me the story. So if you're these guys, I think it's pretty easy to avoid the criticism. I would say they're viewed. I mean, they've spent a lot of money the last couple of years. It feels like on their team. It feels like they're pretty good NFL owners. Once they have the right people in place running the operation, they've had Jason Light and they've supported him and given him money, and he's kind of excelled. First, you mentioned you don't do merch. I think you should. It's a big picture play. I would say 2026. To my question, you mentioned you love drafts. And with the Major League Draft just recently happening, I had thought, how do you think the NFL draft would work under these rules? It's complicated, so I'll attach a summary of the rules. Well, I'm not going to break down the rules. I actually got a buddy. We played golf probably 3 months ago. He was out here to like scout, I don't know, low A or rookie ball. but he also scouts college and high school players. And he was telling me at this one high school in LA, Corona. I think the number one player that was drafted, number one overall, was from. I think they had three guys that were. I don't know if they all three got drafted in the top 10, but three guys on a high school team predicted to go potentially in the top 10 or top 15. Two of them going to go in the top five. It's like, Jesus, in high school? I think and he was telling me he was having to place some calls to some guys, like how much money they would need to sign. I think it's too complicated. I think one thing baseball, one, in fairness to them, their draft, college baseball is not some national product, so we don't know the prospects. But let's use the NBA. The NBA got this new CBA that no one beside like Bobby Marks and Bob Myers can understand. That's not good for your fan base. Like, honestly, let's keep this stuff pretty simple. Even as these numbers get outrageous, look at the NFL. It's still kind of complicated. It's like, well, how much guarantee? How much is a cap hit? It's not super black and white where it's like everyone can follow along. But for the most part, I know if you're drafted in the third round, you probably have 95% chance to make the team. And I know you don't cost that much money. I know if you're drafted in the first round, you're going to get a 4-year guaranteed contract. And if you're good, you're going to get your 5th-year option picked up, and they'll give you a big extension. It's like just not that complicated. And I think the more you complicate this stuff, the more it drives people away. I think baseball really dealt with this over the course of the last couple decades. Is obviously stats play a big role. But I remember being a kid and picking up the newspaper and just looking. This is, we didn't have cable TV, so like mid 90s. Who led the league in home runs, in RBIs, in doubles, in strikeouts, in wins? Like that stuff used to matter. And I get it. Like the front offices don't care and some of the stats are overrated. But the more and more it became more complicated with numbers and statistics, I do think it drove people away. I think the NBA deals with that a little bit, though, like points, rebounds, they still really matter. I think their salary cap and the way you can build the team is way too complicated now. Like this is entertainment, so you want to make this as easy as possible. Your first show, I'll check one of my podcasts. Appreciate it. Question for the pod. I'm a Pats fan. Obviously, we have the highest level of hope we've had in years going into the season with Vrabel and McDaniels combo. Seemingly a young developing quarterback, hopefully taking the next step. My question is about Drake Maye. What do you think his ceiling is? Most seem to agree that he is capable of leading a team to a playoff, but do you think he can become a top quarterback? I do wonder, a little bit like Herbert, who's a better player, obviously, with Harbaugh. I think there are going to be some similarities in the way this team's going to want to play. Like in the next couple years, they get better talent. They're going to try to be a defense first, running the ball, slow down the game. Like I have a hard time envisioning this team led by Mike Vrabel trying to throw it 50 times a game, 40 times a game. They're going to want to be a top 5 team in the league in rushing and have a really good defense. And to me, if he can be, what Ryan Tannehill was to Vrabel, what Alex Smith was to Jim Harbaugh with the 49ers, but he's more gifted than those guys, then you can become a really, really good player. So do I think they're ever going to play like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen? I don't. I don't think that's going to be the case. But, obviously he's really physically gifted. Um, I I think his ceiling's pretty high. But I also think the ceiling in which they're going to construct the team and approach games, like Mike Vrabel's not going to play like Andy Reid. He's not going to operate like Lane Kiffin. Or Lincoln Riley. It's not how he envisions playing football. Now this year, depending on how talented they are, they'll do whatever it takes to win. But like as they build this thing up, I think there's a specific way they're going to want to play. They're going to want a guy or a unit competing to lead the league in rushing. And they're going to want a top defense. That's going to come first before turning Drake Maye into a star. And then ideally, when you play like that, your quarterback gets better and better. So I'd be high. I'm going to pick you guys to make the playoffs. Here's the last question. My proposal to fix college football. Scrap conference system entirely. Reorganize teams into 4 national divisions based solely on football spending. No geography, no legacy, rivalries stay intact. The 12-team playoff format remains unchanged. Each division has a salary floor and cap that includes NIL payouts. Legacy division, 25 to 40 million. Blue bloods with big budgets and title pedigree. Champion division, 15 to 25 million. High quality programs with serious investment and upside. Founders division, 5 to 15. Gritty regional powers and respected mid majors. I like I'd watch a lot of Founders. Frontier division, 1 million to 5 million. Developmental, tradition, or small market teams. Teams play 10 individual games. One projected rivalry game, Texas OU, Army, Navy, etc., and one flex game. Relegation happens every 2 years based strictly on spending, not wins or losses. This model keeps games competitive, protects tradition, and gives school a clear path to grow into elite status. Well, here's the thing. Part of the spending on football is based on the television contracts. So the reason, obviously, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Oregon, these programs have a lot of money. But like Iowa or Minnesota or some of these programs in the SEC can spend a lot because they're getting a lot from their television. So based on the spending, like if you put Alabama in the Big 12, I'm just using this example, like they are getting a lot of money from TV. So part of the money, it's not just coming. I get what you're saying, but like all this money, I don't have the 40 million to spend if I don't have a $80 million television contract a year that gets, every team gets 80. I'm just using that as an example. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree. That's where I think it gets more the TV partners. I would even change it. The TV partners just pick the big brands. And then, the Oregons, the Bamas, the Texases, the Oklahomas, the Florida States, the Floridas, and they get all the money. I do think I think relegation gets discussed a lot because it happens in European sports. It is never happening here. College or the pros. Zero chance. Now, it happens sometimes in college, like when USC, Oregon, Washington, and UCLA just leave, and Washington State and Oregon State get fucked. But it's not because you didn't win enough games, because Oregon State and Washington State have been better football programs than UCLA for 15 years. But no one signs up for that in America because we're spending so much money on stuff. I hear this sometimes in pro sports. It's like, guys, David Tepper spent $4 billion. Whoever spent $10 billion to buy the Lakers or whatever the numbers are. They are never agreeing. Hey, if it doesn't go well in 4 years, you can get kicked out of the league. It's like, then I'm not buying. You would never, a huge part of the prices that people are spending, and this is where it's going to come in with the venture capitalist money, which are sniffing around college football, is knowing you can't go anywhere. So like Alabama, clearly they don't have the boosters of Oregon, of USC, of Texas. But if I was a venture capitalist, I'd go, hey, can I become a booster there, get a piece of the profits because I know you have the infrastructure, the fan base, and the ability to generate revenue. But you don't have any boosters. You need my fund's money. But if it's like, well, because I know they can't go anywhere, and I know if I support you, even if you don't win national championships, like we're going to make a lot of money. If there was a risk that, like, hey, 3 straight years of less than 8-9 wins, you might get booted. You would never get investment there. Like Texas Tech got this billionaire to give him a bunch of money that like everyone's going to get fired if they win 7 games this year. I was watching Josh Pate had on Danny Cannell. I was watching him on YouTube, and I thought Danny had and they were talking about Texas Tech, and you start giving huge amounts of money, like you gotta win. Like part of the reason Phil Knight's been pretty happy with Oregon for 25 years at football, they've been pretty good. I mean, they've won a lot of games, won a lot of games. So I hear what you're saying. I just think a lot of the money in college comes from the TV, or 3 or 4 programs have like one individual that pumps a lot of money. But for the most part, it's all based on the TV money. So I just think it's a little more complicated than I think sometimes the way it's discussed.